Shavua Tov, a gute Woche, and welcome to our program. On Monday will be Chai Elul, the 18th day of Elul, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe. The Baal Shem Tov was born also on a Monday, and the year of Chai Elul Tov Nun Ches comes out to 1698, and on Wednesday, Chai Elul Tov Kuf Hey comes out to 1745, was the birthday of the Alter Rebbe. And not only that, the Rebbe Nishmas Eden, the father of the previous Rebbe, said to the previous Rebbe on Chai Elul, Gut Yom Tov. So this is why Chassidim are wishing each other, and let's remember it, Imir Hashem for Chai Elul. On Chai Elul, we wish each other Gut Yom Tov. Now, someone can say Gut Yom Tov whenever they want, whenever Yom Tov. However, if we are talking about something that the Rebbe said Gut Yom Tov on that day, that is one of those days is Chai Elul. So Yom Hashem on Monday, we can greet each other, starting from Sunday night, we can greet each other by saying Gut Yom Tov. Now, the Rebbe brings that when the Rebbe spoke about Chai Elul, they said of the Shnei HaMe'eris HaGdelim, together, of the two great luminaries, the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. In a Sicha, where the Rebbe speaks about Chai Elul, he mentions what the previous Rebbe said. He said two explanations on Chai Elul. One is, Chai Elul is der Tag, was hat gebracht und bringt a Leben in Elul. Chai Elul is the day that brought and brings a vitality in the month of Elul. And the second explanation is based, Chai Elul gita chayes, Chai Elul brings a vitality in the Aveda von Anile Deidi v'Deidi Li. Anile Deidi v'Deidi in the Aveda. And the explanation is, what does Chai Elul means? Chai means life. Chai Elul, the life of Elul. So this day brings life to the month of Elul. So the month of Elul is the month, of course, of Anila Deidi v'Deidi Li. But before that, the month of Elul is the month of Tshuva in general. And because of that, Chai Elul brings a chayes, a vitality to that concept. And Chai Elul brings a vitality to the concept of Anila Deidi v'Deidi Li. There is something absolutely mind-boggling, Rebbe say, that we see in an entry, in the entry of Chai Elul by the Rebbe in Hayom Yom. I'm saying absolutely mind-boggling, as I'm sure you will agree. The Rebbe starts Chai Elul, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, and then he says that the Baal Shem Tov said a Teirah on Chai Elul Tov Reish Nun Beis. And this brought the Teirah, Kisovei Oretz. Now when you read it, Chai Elul Tov Reish Nun Beis, a Teirah of the Baal Shem Tov. Chai Elul Tov Reish Nun Beis, we're talking about 1892, which is 132 years after the Histalkus of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was Nistalek on Shavuos Tov Kuf Chof, 1760, and this is 132 years after the Histalkus of the Baal Shem Tov. So there's an entry in Hayom Yom that the Baal Shem Tov said, Atayda and Chai Elul Tov Reish Nun Beis. Wonderful. Chai Elul Tov Reish Nun Beis, the Baal Shem Tov was in Gan Eden. How do we have a record of what the Baal Shem Tov said in Gan Eden in the year of Chai Elul Tov Reish Nun Beis, 132 years after he left this world? We will return to that in a moment, to that question and to another question that the Rebbe is asking. But first, our customary story. I heard the story from an individual who was not a Lubavitcher, and the story that he heard firsthand. He lives in Brooklyn on Avenue M. The porch next to him lives a Gentile by the name of Bob. And this Gentile, as they're talking, he was on the porch, the Gentile was on the porch, they're talking. So he says to him, I want to tell you a story, he says, the Gentile, Bob, how he was saved by the Rebbe. He was a smoker, a heavy smoker, and he wasn't feeling well. Went to the doctor. The doctor said, we have to take x-rays, scans. We took a scan, and the doctor says to him, not very good news. They found, Rachmana litzlan, that machle in the lungs. He was broken. In his work, he helped mitzvah tanks, which means that he would, when he would rent mitzvah tanks for a day, for a few days, they needed servicing, he was in that business, he did that. So he told the Lubavitcher who were involved with him in the mitzvah tanks, he told them what the doctor said. So they asked him for his name. I think a Gentile, you ask him for his name and his father's name. And they sent in a note to the Rebbe, and they asked the Rebbe for a bracha. And the Rebbe gave him a bracha. Then he goes to the doctor, and the doctor takes another scan to see what has to be done. And the doctor asks him, what did you do? What's the matter? The doctor says, the scan is clean. It doesn't show any, it's clean. No more growth. What did you do? He says, what I did? I got a blessing from the Rebbe. Now, this individual tells me that he, who lives in Brooklyn on Avenue M, that he heard the story from the Gentile Bob, with whom this story happened. Rabbi say, concerning this question, the Rebbe asks this question. It's 132 years after the Histalkus of the Baal Shem Tov. And we have an entry. A Torah that the Baal Shem Tov said in Gan Eden. So how do we know about it? The answer is, the previous Rebbe provided us with the answer, that the Rebbe Nishmas Seiden heard it from the Baal Shem Tov. The Rebbe Nishmas Seiden was in this world. As a matter of fact, he was only 31 years old. He was born on Chof Cheshvan Tofreish Chof Aleph, and on Chayel Tofreish Nun Beis, he was 31 years old. 31 going on almost 32. So he was in this world, and the Rebbe Nishmas Seiden heard the story, the Wort, the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov in Gan Eden. Now, this is one of the greatest miracles. I don't want to say greatest miracles of all time, that yes, there are people who went to Gan Eden. Yes, there are many, but they never came back. It was a one-way trip to Gan Eden. Here there's a story of an individual who was in this world, and he went to Gan Eden. He heard the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov in Gan Eden, and then he got back to this world to tell us the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. That's something that's absolutely mind-boggling. Moreover, the Rebbe says, the previous Rebbe only told this story 45 years later, on Simchas Torah of Tofreish Tzadik Zayin, which is the end of September in 1936. The previous Rebbe told the story 45 years after it happened. So we have a few questions here. Number one, it's one of the all-time miracles that Rebbe Nishmas Seiden, who was in this world, was only 31 years old, went to Gan Eden, heard the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, and came back to this world. And as mentioned, many people went to Gan Eden, but they never came back. He went to Gan Eden and he came back and he told us the Torah, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Now the second question is, well, that's a fact. The second question is, the previous Rebbe waited for 45 years to tell the story. The Rebbe Nishma Seiden only told it to the previous Rebbe, and the previous Rebbe only told the story on Shmini Atzeres in Atvotsk in Tofelish Tzadik Zayin at the end of 1936. Then he told the story, not before. And the Rebbe answers with a parable, with a moshel, the moshel that everyone knows. The Rebbe even calls it the moshel hayodua, the known moshel. And the story goes back in the time of the Alter Rebbe, whose birthday is Chayelul, when he was by the Mazeritcher Magid, and the Pinchas Koritzer saw a page that was flying in the wind of the day, and the page had Chassidus on it. The Pinchas Koritzer picked up the page, and he wasn't happy. Chassidus flying in the wind, and he took it that this is why, because the dissemination of Chassidus is done in a free way, and to which he objected. And the people around there noticed that the Pinchas Koritzer objected, and they called the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe went over to the Pinchas Koritzer, and the Alter Rebbe told him a moshel, that the child of the king did not feel well. All doctors, he called doctors and physicians and experts, they all gave up. One doctor came in, he said, I have a remedy, that he should take the stone, not only the diamond that is the centerpiece of the king's crown. You should take the diamond and you should grind the diamond into a liquid. And then you should see if you could put in one drop into the mouth of the king's son, into the mouth of the prince. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the position of doing anything himself. So he had to open his mouth and put in one drop. He says, maybe that would help. And the nimshal is ba'anegeya to the esoteric part of Chassidus, to the hidden part of Chassidus, that before there was no permission. The Alter Rebbe brings it in Tanya. There was no permission to disseminate Chassidus in an open fashion. However, before the coming of the Baal Shem Tov, because the coming of Moshiach, then that permission was granted, and therefore we're doing everything to save that child, that Jewish child, Rachmana litzlan, from becoming worse. So the Rebbe answers that the previous Rebbe, since it's such a great story, such a great miracle, you can say an all-time miracle, the previous Rebbe was waiting and did not want to reveal that miracle. Maybe the world isn't ready for it. But now the year is Shmini Atzeres Tov Reish Tzadik Zayin in Atvotsk. And we know that date. We don't know the exact date, but we know that time. That this was before those dark clouds of the Holocaust. 2 years before. And since there were already dark clouds, the previous Rebbe felt that was the time, through telling such a story, through telling such a mephis, to bring more light into this world. Maybe, just maybe, we will push away those dark clouds, the darkness that is coming our way. So therefore, the previous Rebbe waited 45 years, until it's now the end of 1936. And those who know the history, in the end of 1936, the world already knew that we were in trouble. And many people suspected as to what is going to happen. So this is when the previous Rebbe told us this story. So number one, how do we know about what happened in Tofelish Tzadik Beis and Chai Elul? The Rebbe Nishma Seiden heard it. Exactly as what you heard. He was in this world, but he went up to the heavenly heights. He went up to Gan Eden, and he heard a Torah from Baal Shem Tov 2 times. One Friday, once, and then again. The Rebbe says that Baal Shem Tov said it in 2 times. He heard it both times, and then he came back in this world. And he was only 31 years old, and he told us the story. And the previous Rebbe waited for 45 years until he felt that he has to tell the story because maybe, just maybe, that story will help push away those dark clouds that were coming towards us. Rebbe say, we're talking about Chai Elul, we're talking about Gut Yom Tov. The Rebbe Nishma Seiden said to his son on Chai Elul, Gut Yom Tov. Let us wish each other on Chai Elul, Sunday night and Monday, Gut Yom Tov, Lashono Tevo Tikosevu V'Sichosemu, Aksiva V'Achsima Teva Unashono Tevo Umsuko. And it should be, as the Novi says in the Haftarah soon, Ushnas Geulai Bo'o, and the year of my redemption, says Almighty God, came. The redemption not only of the Jewish people, but also the redemption of God Himself. It's a perfect deal. It's wonderful for us. We'll get out of Golus, but it's also good for Almighty God. He will get out of Golus as well, together with us. ובגולו דידנו, ושמחו ובטוב לבוב, ובטבע נילה והנגלו, למטו מעשרות טפוחים, ובחסד ובלחמים, ותקף, ומיד ממש.